Well, that would be me, Dennis Machine Gun Thompson. Sometimes they call me Denny Boy. Sometimes they call me Idiot. Sometimes they say, "Hey, you." But I play the drums. Michael, you play what? The bass? Michael played the bass.
I was a bass player.
This is all stuff from a long time ago.
This is the area where we all moved in. We all first moved in together to Artist Workshop. This is the castle, but this is in the same area.
We moved in down the street.
Down the
Across the
street.
alley,
But
yeah.
this was our neighborhood
Yeah.
when we first all moved in together and made the commitment to go full blast.
There's Minister Plamondon.
Minister of Defense in the White Panther Party.
Yeah.
That's his
Beautiful
wife,
wife,
Jeannie
Jeannie.
Plamondon. She's the ministress of defense.
Everybody smokes cigarettes.
There's everybody that's hanging out at the artist workshop
Yeah.
there. That's so Detroit, man. And tongue out like that. That's so Detroit too.
Well, we had a clique like of about 20 people, right?
Yeah,
Essentially, as it evolved,
Yeah.
and everybody had sort of like a title, a working title, what they did. Jesse Crawford was a spiritual advisor, and we had a minister of information. And who was that? I don't.
We need to find that information.
We better look
Where we
that
can
up.
find that
Where's the
information about the Minister of Information.
Funny thing about information, but this was all in fun. This was all joking.
This
is something I don't think people understand about us. That it was it was all tongue in cheek, sitting
It was
around,
all
around a
hilarious.
table, smoking a joint, having a good old time.
Yeah.
We had a lot of good times at the artist workshop. We had this. Remember the big round table we had, that big long table. And we all be pounding, playing drums like a bunch of Aborigines high on peyote.
Where the photograph of us was taken with the upside down American flag.
That's right. Oh, yeah, that's that famous photograph that's in the first album where everyone asked, "Did you actually pin that White Panther button into your chest?" I said, "Hell yes, man." It was taped.
And when we first played that place, the Artist Workshop, John Sinclair's wife Lenny pulled the plug out on us.
I remember that. You play too loud. You play too loud.
We were definitely the rebel
rebel
element of the city.
This was we had a lot of attention from law enforcement.
Maybe it was some of the press we were getting, some of the early press that we got. But the parents would read about this MC5 band and what it was doing with the kids, and this talk of sex, drugs, and rock and roll. That the fear factor started was originated.
Send a posse to get us.
Yeah. This is a gig we played on Belle Isle in Detroit. It was called the Love Inn, and it happened on my birthday in 1967, April 30th. We were all much younger then.
67 is the year of Love Inn, right?
Sinclair.
John Sinclair.
And we were selected somehow or another to play at this event. It was very early in our existence.
MC5, we used to play this kind of stuff all the time. Really, anyone give us half a chance, we'd show up and play. This was at the beginning of the hippie movement in Detroit.
Yeah, I wasn't quite a hippie then, was I?
No, you were still.
I was a college boy.
You were a college student.
And
yes.
you guys actually stopped me from going to college. You said you either quit that Wayne State business or you join this band or go back to school.
Yes, we corrupted you totally.
And we
Absolutely.
diverted you from your...
That's right, you did that. And the first time I actually got high, and I really finally got the Jimi Hendrix experience. I took some good LSD, and I played with a broom for about 5 or 6 hours, over and over and over again. And I've never been the same ever since.
Yeah.
And there's Rob Tyner, our man,
With
adjusting.
that's our really great PA system.
That was our high tech.
Yeah.
That was state of the art in those days.
Whoa.
Michael, look at you, how high your bass was.
Yeah.
Love it.
Hi, Rob. How you doing?
Look at that.
Look at this.
Oh,
This
Like
is
a
like straight out of high
you
school.
had a Fender dual shoulder?
Well, I graduated in '66, and I'd be 18 years old then. That's right.
Yeah,
You were 19.
too.
You were a year
Yeah.
older, right? You're a year older than me.
I used to be, but
This
now
is
I'm the
one of
same
our
age.
first gigs.
This is one of the
What's the SE stand for?
I don't know.
Southeast?
Southeast. I don't know. SC. What tunes were we doing right then, Wayne? Help me out.
Man, I remember we did
Dennis,
Looking at You.
September 14th, 1948, Frederick Dewey Smith was born on Broad Branch, West Virginia, in the Harts Creek area of Lincoln and Logan counties. An electrical storm was raging and the midwife was delayed, so Fred was delivered by his grandfather in the family's kitchen. A humble entrance for one who would go on to co-found one of the 60s most incendiary bands. He attended Lincoln Park High School, where, as a self-proclaimed greaser, he was regularly in trouble for having long hair. He was also athletic. A promising shortstop, he was scouted for the Tigers farm system, and his dreams were divided between sports and music. In the mid-1960s, playing bongos in the vibratones, he met fellow student Wayne Kramer. Fred switched to guitar and bought a Fender Duosonic, which provided him with his nickname. Smith and Kramer joined forces. Adding singer Rob Tyner and an explosive rhythm section, they call themselves Motor City 5, which evolved as the MC5. MC5's sound was shaped by its imported Super Beetle Vox amps. Costing $3,000, they were the most powerful amplifier on the market. The band's main hangout was the Detroit drag strip, and Fred found he was able to replicate the sound and energy of the nitro-fueled dragsters by turning his Super Beetle up to 10. The band rehearsed at the Detroit Artists Workshop, a combination residence and performance space. It was operated by John Sinclair, a jazz poet and head of the militant anti-racist White Panther Party, who became the band's manager. MC5 was hired as the house band for the Grandy Ballroom, at the time the city's premier venue, and opened for some of the most influential acts of the day, including Jimi Hendrix and Cream. The MC5 never shied away from confrontation or feared clashes with law enforcement. The band agreed to perform at the infamous 1968 Democratic Convention in Chicago. More famous acts were slated to appear, but in the end, only MC5 performed. The show and the city's Lincoln Park erupted into a riot. MC5 relocated to Ann Arbor, Michigan, a growing epicenter for music, art, and politics. The MC5 and fellow Detroiters Iggy and the Stooges came to the attention of Danny Fields, who had signed the Doors to the label. Elektra signed both bands on the same day. The MC5's 1968 debut album, Kick Out the Jams, was recorded live at the Grandy, and the group was featured on the cover of Rolling Stone magazine before the record was even released. Atlantic Records' Jerry Wexler signed the group and issued MC5's second album, Back in the USA. Fred had emerged as the band's central writer and penned half the songs on its third and final release, High Time. I know she can. She's my sister. The MC5 played its legendary last show on New Year's Eve 1972 at the Grandy Ballroom. Fred then formed Sonic's Rendezvous Band. In 1977 through 79, Sonic's Rendezvous co-billed with the Patti Smith Group. In 2003, Rolling Stone ranked Fred Smith as one of rock's greatest guitarists of all time. Fred Sonic Smith's musical legacy is far-reaching and further magnified by his stoic, honorable character and the love and devotion he bestowed on his family. Welcome back, Sonic!
The MC5 created a scene in Detroit that became huge. As a result of this training from my father, I was mechanically inclined and going for engineering, just broad at that time, mechanical, whatever. The first 2 years, it's all the same, and then you start to specialize in your third year. So that was my plan. That was my life plan. And then the MC5 was there as an option. What did I like more? God, I liked engineering. I really did. I liked math. I loved the band. I loved the music since I was this big. I wasn't doing math at 4 years old, right? I was playing drums. So my true love, my true desire, I was lucky enough to find out at a very early age my passion in life, to make it a career.
So I took 2 paths at the same time. One studied and safe that I loved, and the other one chancy, but fun. Hoo! Big fun, right? I chose fun because the band said to me one day, Dennis, we're about to be signed. We're not signed yet, but we know we're going to get signed. You know we're going to get signed. We're building up a bigger audience. More bands are playing together. More money you got, the better clothes you can get, the better equipment you can buy, okay? You're making steps. You're making progress. Well, we managed to do it on our own, bit by bit, by bit by bit. The money we made, we bought equipment. We bought amplifiers, broken cymbals, a gross of sticks, drumsticks about every 2 months because I'd break them in half because drums weren't mic'd. And I got these guys with Super Beatles and Voxes and Marshalls behind me playing on 10, those guitar player egos, you know. Hey, guitar players are the heroes, drummers are just sidemen. Fuck you! You know, rock and roll, the best rock and roll bands have great drummers, period. That's all there's to it. First album was live, second album, We Hear the Clams. Michael Davis kept screwing up Tutti Frutti. We took 36 takes of it. And then finally we had enough. Wayne played the bass part, and then he wound up playing bass on 3 or 4 other songs. That was the beginning of the breaking up of the band. Michael was devastated, and I roomed with him, and I said, practice. I go to his side of the room. He's too busy too busy smoking pot or too busy just dicking around. Why don't you practice this simple progression for a chorus, okay? Just practice it so I ain't got to play it. I'm playing it like this. God damn it, get it right. And we all got pissed off at him and said, hey, sit down, relax, man. Wayne played it, came out fine. Because the second album was about precision. We overcompensated for the first album. And then third album, we got it dead on.
I see people dying. I wanna sit around crying.
Let's talk about Over and Over briefly.
Sure, great song. Fred and Wayne, when Rob did the vocal, we did the music first in London. And when Rob went to do the vocal, Fred and Wayne stopped him 10 times and kept digging at him to reach down deeper, get the real feeling out. If you're pissed off about that and you're really frustrated about that, play method acting, basically. Get that across in the intonations and the deliverance and the pentameter of what you're saying. Because the lyrics are beautiful. I mean, the lyrics summarize the day and the frustrations and all wonderfully. It's my brother's favorite song. He likes the do-do-do-do-do-do-do-do down, the choruses. Background pretty, a little bit of everything in there. It's a great song.
So you guys were prodding him and egging him on to take it further? Because it sounds like he's crying almost.
Wayne and Fred were irritating him, saying, you can do this better. Rob, dig down deep. What does this line mean to you? Well, it's about this crazy guy who's trying to figure out a ways to blow up the world. Oh, that's just one line, dude, And we're tired of what? The hippies telling us they want a love generation, and these guys telling us they want this and they want that. Like f***ing A, over and over and over. We're tired of it. Aren't you? That was the message in the song. To get Rob to sing that, he had to actually emote the right feelings. It's a different way to construct a song, but it worked. With the third album, we had great material, and it was not a forbearance of our demise. It was celebration of how good we are, how much we love what we do. And everybody had a happy time playing. We recorded in 4 different studios, and it was great. But like the example of Fred and Wayne pushing Rob, they know he can do better, and he's not doing it. So we're doing it again. No, man, my voice is almost gone. Tough shit. We'll take a break for an hour, okay? Go drink some ice water. Relax. Go drink a tea, whatever. Fred really came into, he really flowered at that point in time. I mean, he had all these songs in him. He was a rhythm guitar player at heart first.
Born Under a Bad Sign. It's kind of our theme song.
The subtitle, Born
Yes,
With a
it
Bad
is.
Thing. If it wasn't for my bad thing, I wouldn't have any fun at all.
I made it. I went through all this trouble. The band breaking up hurt a lot. It hurt a lot. So I got a little alcoholic for a while after that. But then I overcame it. Then my wife died. And, you know, life just keeps on sometimes punching you in the gut. And you've got to remain strong. So when I talk about strong men, I mean strong men from honesty, from righteousness, what's right, what's wrong. Teach these things to the kids. Teach your kids to learn what, tell your kid when he's 10 years old, 11 years old, what do you really love, son? What do you like, daughter?
My name is Michael Davis, and I was a bass player in the MC5. In 1965, I met these young characters in Detroit, and they had a band called the MC5, and we became friends. They thought it would be a good idea if I would play bass with them, and I didn't play bass, but I picked it up pretty quickly. After I met the MC5 in '65, just like, you know, the door was open. I had to go through it. I think the chemistry of the MC5 was really what made the band what it was. It's 5 completely different characters and just giving it all.
They wanted to be the best band of all time.
It has this kind of eternal magic quality about it, that it's something that was supposed to happen and didn't, but it did. And I was fortunate to be a part of it. The legend of the MC5 is eternal. It's an eternal truth, and you just can't get away from it. You can't avoid it. It's coming at you. I don't see it ever going away in some crazy form. Maybe we become a action figure cartoon in the next decade.
Mike Davis plays bass just outrageously loud. I mean, a really great bass player.
And I was taking guitar lessons at a music store. It was called Town and Country Music in Lincoln Park, Michigan. In the late 1960s, when the MC5 was emerging, we lived in the ghetto of Detroit, down by the university. And we were part of a community of beatnik, hippie, anarchist ne'er-do-wells, and you could have long hair, you could smoke weed, you could play music loud at night, nobody cared, and people of color could live with white people, and nobody gave a damn. You know, everyone, we're all poor, we're all struggling artists, and we found that we were all the same. When I was a young man and started the MC5, I was trying to find my voice. I was trying to find a sound. I figured I could play the guitar pretty well, but where could I go beyond what I could play? What was the next step? John Sinclair turned me on to the free jazz movement, the music of Albert Ayler and Pharoah Sanders and Archie Shepp and Sun Ra and John Coltrane, Cecil Taylor, and embraced this idea of breaking the rules. You have to know what the rules are in order to break them. Because playing free is not actually free. You have to play with more discipline, more musical integrity. It's what we tried to do in the MC5.
Hello, Nick.
Yes, hello, is that Wayne?
Yes.
How are you, Wayne?
I'm well, thank you. Yourself?
I'm well. Now, firstly, I'll give you the big intro, Wayne. It's Nick Black, and I've got Wayne Kramer on the line over there in California, who, according to Rolling Stone magazine, is one of the 100 greatest rock guitarists of all time. Wayne, hello.
Hello. Happy to be on the line.
Well, don't believe Rolling Stone, because you know what, Wayne, they actually gave Kick Out the Jams a bad review when it was first released.
It was stunning. It was so bad. I was on acid when I read it. It bummed me out.
Is that because you had to take the acid to deal with the bad review?
No, I just happened to be on acid when the paper showed up, and I thought I was pretty sure my career was over.
Wayne, let's start at the start now. Are you I don't know what you call a Detroit native, a Detroitian. What do you call a Detroit native?
A Detroiter.
A Detroiter. So were you born in Detroit?
I was, 1948.
What was your background? Did you go to the local school and all that?
Yeah, usual working class upbringing, played baseball, rode a bicycle, got in schoolyard fights, the typical stuff, and one day discovered the electric guitar, and I was changed forever.
So were you listening to music? Is that how you got to the electric guitar? What was the background behind that, Wayne?
Well, music was pretty ubiquitous. It was on the radio in the car. You could hear it in the neighborhoods. People had record players or listened to the radio.
You were listening to radio. I think there were specialist radio stations in America at the time.
Radio was a huge market. There were dozens of stations that broadcast all different kinds of music. It was like a smorgasbord. You could pick and choose what you wanted to listen to when. It was really fabulous. It was a great time to be alive, to be a young person in Detroit in the 50s and early 60s. The city was thriving in those days. It was a boom town.
Let's get on to MC5. However, initially you were friends with Fred Smith, another budding young musician. Is that right?
We were schoolmates.
Did you have plans to put a band together? Fred had a band and you had your Bounty Hunters.
Right. Well, originally I just tried to join somebody else's band, but I was always a little younger than the other guys that were auditioning, and they always played better than me. So I figured, let's go to Plan B, start your own band.
Ah, wise man, Wayne, wise man. Obviously, Fred's and your band didn't go the whole distance, and you guys got together. Is that how the MC5 formed?
Right. We decided we enjoyed playing with each other, and Fred was in a lot of ways my student. I'd been playing a little longer, and I could play a little bit better, so I'd show him all the stuff that I know, and I enjoyed his company so much. We were boys, and we liked Ian Fleming novels, and we tried to figure out how to get in girls' underwear, and we were just fantastically enthusiastic young kids, and we decided to play together, and then we ultimately hooked up with Rob Tyner, and we had a different rhythm section, but later Dennis Thompson and Michael Davis joined up with us, and we had become the MC5. Over the years, we'd learned how to play, and we learned how to write songs, and we learned how to perform for an audience, and we started to develop some ideas about music and about our place in the world, and we finally met John Sinclair, and he turned us on to the free jazz movement. If I could play my most intense Chuck Berry solo as fast as I could play it, as loud as I could play it, where's the next step? And Albert Ayler and Cecil Taylor and John Coltrane and Sun Ra showed me where the next step was.
Because you guys were the forerunners of the punk rock movement that we know today. But you know what, Wayne? In every Ramones song I've heard, I've never heard that free jazz within that 2-minute running time.
That's always been my greatest disappointment with punk rock, is that it just hewed to those same 3 or 4 chords, and it never moved out. It seemed like they missed that dimension of the MC5 and the Stooges. The Stooges listened to free jazz, too.
Getting back to Fred, so how did he get the moniker Sonic?
Gretsch Guitars made a version of one of their guitars they called the Sonic Boom, and he adopted that because it was an alliteration with Smith, Sonic Smith. We were all making up new identities for ourselves.
Rob was Derminard.
Bob DeMiner was his name.
There's one thing that's got to be well remembered is Rob's hair, that afro. Was that natural or was that manufactured?
I'll tell you about Rob's hair. Hair was a big issue in the 60s. But my hair was curly, and Rob's hair was kinky. And so we would try all kinds of products and techniques to make our hair straight, and it just didn't work. And in fact, at one point, Rob and I went to a barber shop in the heart of the black community where the black barbers said they could straighten hair. And we said, great, can you make it like the Beatles? And they said, yeah, sure we can. And Rob endured this terrible treatment where they put these products on his hair to straighten his hair, which are kind of like acid.
Oh, dear.
And it burned his head, and he took it all like a soldier. I mean, we thought this was going to be the solution. And then when they were done, his hair looked like a helmet, and he hated it. It was terrible. So we went home, and then a few days later, he showed up at rehearsal. He had cut it all off, and he had this nice, tight little afro start. We used to call it a natural. And we realized the way your hair comes out of your head naturally is beautiful. That's fantastic. And I let my hair get curly and just do whatever it wanted to do. And he became the founding member of the White Boy with Afro movement.
And that's something we talk about today. We don't even talk about the music. We talk about Rob's hair. That's the important thing.
That's right. The best hair in rock and roll.
Well, I've never seen a white man have such an afro. Seeing the pictures of Rob, it's just incredible. And coupled that, because he had a unique look for a lead singer, because he wasn't the typical looking lead singer. He had the huge tooth gap as well.
You couldn't have invented a better lead singer for a band. I mean, yeah, he looked like nobody else in the world. He had these skinny legs and tiny little waist and big shoulders and big hair, and he wore glasses, and he had a gap in his teeth. But all that's just the physical stuff. What made him incredible was his mind. He was a genius in the truest sense of the word. He had a vision for the band. He had an idea in his mind about how the future was going to unfold and what it would be comprised of. He could draw incredibly well. He was a painter. He designed his own clothes. When he discovered songwriting, he became a world-class lyricist. He could sing his ass off. He was a soulful singer, as you can imagine, and he was a phenomenal live entertainer. He loved to get in front of a crowd and entertain the people. He could dance. He could sing. He could do it all. He was really the singularly most creative person I've ever known in my life.
Patti Smith was such a strong feminist that she'd only marry somebody she didn't have to change her name to. That's why she married Fred.
I don't know.
Rob, Michael and Dennis, were all they Detroitans?
Yes, we were all Detroiters. All born in Detroit, yeah.
When you formed the band, the general creative process there, Wayne, for the MC5?
We loved James Brown, so we would do his songs, and then we'd try to rearrange them to make them our own, and we'd put so much energy into rearranging someone else's song that we finally decided, let's just write our own lyrics, and this will be our song.
Plus the royalties are better too, Wayne. Did you know that?
Well, yes, we did know that the goal really was to write your own songs and play concerts, not to play cover songs in bars, but to play your own songs and play them in concert settings, travel around the world.
How did you manage to start getting gigs?
Well, I was the band leader, and I would come home from school in my school days and get on the phone all afternoon and just call everyone and every place and any place I thought a band could play. I called schools and community centers and clubs and gathering places and shopping malls. Any place that I thought a band could play, I'd call them up and offer my band services. Hospitals, mental health homes, anywhere. We would play, and we rehearsed all the time. We were relentless rehearsers. We loved what we were doing. Got to get in your 10,000 hours.
So eventually you're getting gigs, and there's a place called the Grandy Ballroom. Was this a place where bands played regularly?
No bands played there. It was built in the 1930s, and it was a big band dance hall. And a local promoter had gone to San Francisco and seen what was happening out there with the Fillmore sophomores and how the San Francisco scene was emerging, and he thought maybe he could reproduce that in Detroit. So he rented the Grandy, and he had to find a band that could play music that people could dance to, rock music, but that also had their own music. It was important that it was original music, and there was really only one band in Detroit that could do that, and that was the MC5. So we were hired as the house band. And we would open every night, and sooner or later, guest bands would come on tour from different cities or come from Europe, and they would always have to play with us. We played there so often. We played there every week for years, and we really were able to refine our performance and polish it to a degree of accomplishment that no other bands could really keep up with us. In fact, a lot of them would ask not to have the MC5 on the show with them.
A Grandy ballroom for a Grandy band. There you go. Danny Fields from Elektra Records, he found you. He was, I think, the A&R guy. Elektra had an amazing roster of artists. Love and The Doors. They were building a reputation, and I think The Doors' cash got them to expand quite a bit, and obviously they could afford to pay Danny Fields. So he must have heard about you guys in Detroit and came over to see you. Is that how it worked?
That is how it worked, yeah. Yeah, there was a small conspiracy of friends who connected us, and he came out to see us, and the rest was history. He was blown away by seeing this band that no one had ever heard of, with 3,000 kids showing up, going crazy for them. And he went back to his superiors at Elektra and said, I've seen the future of rock and roll, and let's sign this band.
Okay, you didn't get him into a corner and say, Danny, if you don't sign us, we're going to ram-a-lamma-fa-fa you.
We didn't have to.
And I think he picked up an extra band, Diggy, with his Stooges.
Well, he asked me if there were any more bands like the MC5, and I said, no, there's no other bands like us, but you do need to see our brother band, the Psychedelic Stooges. You may like them. And, of course, he fell in love with the Stooges and signed both of us.
He could pick a band. He could see the future because your high-energy rock and roll, I mean, 68 was the year of heavy rock. Beatles singing Revolution and Hendrix and Blue Cheer and all those sorts of bands. But, well, you brought the political stuff as well with the Kick Out the Jams. I'm just a music listener. I'm not a musician, Wayne. But I bought Kick Out the Jams when I was a kid. It's an amazing record because it is so energetic. I've never heard anything come close to it. Whoever's idea was to do a live album as your first album was just genius. So whose idea was that?
It was a collective idea, partially because we were really focused on live performance, and all our energy had gone into perfecting this live appearance, this show that we developed. We weren't very experienced in the recording studio, so the possibility of a studio recording was going to be a daunting undertaking. I thought also that it was a revolutionary strategy because most bands in those days would do 2 or 3 studio albums and then do a live album. And we thought if we come out with a live album, that'll set us apart from the pack. And finally, of course, recording a live album is much cheaper than recording a studio album, and that appealed to Elektra Records.
Bruce Botnick, who engineered every Doors album, and the plan was obviously to tape you guys at the Grandy Ballroom, and it was done over 2 nights. The cover of Kick Out the Jams, did you guys have any ideas yourself, or this was just all Elektra Records?
Well, I thought we were involved in it. They showed us some rough ideas about what they wanted to do, and we approved those ideas. But to be frank with you, I was greatly disappointed with the artwork on Kick Out the Jams. I thought that the colors were faded. I thought the photographs were not flattering. And if you look close, you'll see all the faces of the fans have been altered. And that happened because Elektra failed to get photo releases from the audience, and they were afraid of being sued. So they manipulated everybody's face, and everyone looks like a mannequin to me. They don't look like real people. And then to add insult to injury, the art director puts a picture of himself up in the corner of our album cover.
Oh, wow, I didn't know that.
Well, that's why we do these interviews.
That's William S. Harvey.
Yes, who hated us.
I didn't even know they invented Photoshop back then.
Well, they did it the old-fashioned way, cut and paste. I know a great many people appreciate the cover, and certainly not my intention to rain on their parade, but from the inside perspective, from my perspective as the artist, I was underwhelmed with the artwork.
Now, Wayne, well, all three of the MC5 albums have lasted reputation-wise, and, well, the thing is, Kick Out the Jams made the top 30 in the album charts as well, so it did very well, especially for a debut album.
It did, yes. We had everything going for us for a minute.
Now, there was the controversy, you've probably told this story quite a few times, but there was the controversy with Hudson's.
Hudson's, yes. They were a huge department store and a chain. I had been shopping in that store since I was a little boy. It was an institution in Detroit. And they heard about the alleged obscenity on the record in the language and in the liner notes. They refused to stock the album. And since we were granted complete control of our publicity, we published an ad that said, "Fuck Hudson's if they won't sell you the record." And so Hudson's pulled all of the Elektra records out of their stock, out of their stores, and Elektra fired us.
Why didn't they just pull out the MC5 records, not the poor old record company?
Well, I think they wanted to send a message that they weren't going to allow people to talk any way they wanted to talk.
And of course, Elektra bowed to the financial pressure that would have been added. And so was that the reason why Elektra fired you guys, yeah?
Yeah, they said we were unprofessional. We were exactly who we told them we were. I don't know if they thought we were joking about our position on things, but we weren't joking. We were deadly serious about our ideas and our beliefs and our politics, and so went ahead and became the people we said we were. It was more than they could handle, and they just wanted to be a nice record company that made a lot of money and sold some records, and they didn't want to challenge the status quo. They said they would back us in court, but of course, when it came time to go to court, they ran for the hills.
Just in general, did you keep in touch with all the guys after the MC5 broke up, Wayne?
Not much. We would talk every 6 or 8, 10 years. We'd talk on the phone, or you'd be somewhere and you'd run into somebody. But no, when the band broke up, we all turned our backs on each other. And really the worst thing that happened is we all lost our partners and our best friends.
Is that how the band broke up? It was after High Time, which was another fantastic album, but that didn't do well sales-wise. Or did the band just sort of drift away? How did it break up there, Wayne?
The band didn't survive failure.
Wayne, look, it's been an absolute pleasure, and congratulations. There's not many artists' albums that have stood the test of time, and if it's lasted 50 years, its reputation will last well after I think we are both long gone.
Yeah. I hope. That's one of the things about diamonds and records are forever.
Well, good ones are forever. A lot of them are long forgotten, thank God.
Yep, I agree.
Wayne, thank you very much for taking time to talk with us, and a Ramalama Fa to you.
Well, thank you so much. I wish you well, and wish all my mainline mellows in Australia well, and look forward to seeing you all soon.
No worries, Wayne.
All right, Nick. Thank you, sir. Bye.